Hello, welcome. I'm just giving people a few minutes to get logged in. I hope everyone's doing well this evening. I see a few familiar names. Hi, everyone. Thanks for logging in today. Welcome. I'm recording today's uh, session. If we have some latecomers, I'll direct them to the intro. But since we have so many people at the very beginning, which is great, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Um, I see a couple more people popping in. But hi, everyone. Welcome. I am so glad you're here tonight. Okay, a couple more people popping in. I'm going to give it another minute. Hello, thanks for joining.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think we've got a great group of people here. Um, just real quick, I'm going to ask everyone to put themselves on mute unless you have a question, but we are going to have a quick Q&A at the end, um, and we'll have the chat open as well. Let's see. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here tonight. My name is Libby Ballingy. I'm the grant administrator for the Montgomery County Arts and Cultural Special Projects Grant. Before we dive in, I just want to say that the fact that you all showed up on a Wednesday night tells me everything I need to know about how much you care about your work and this community, and that's exactly who this grant is designed for. So I'm really excited to talk to you about it this evening. Again, a few quick housekeeping things for those who are just jumping in. Please stay mute unless you're asking a question. Feel free to use the chat, but we will have a formal Q&A at the end. And just so you know, we will have another one of these information sessions on April 13th at 6 p.m. We'll cover similar content. So if you have a colleague who couldn't make it tonight, please send them the link. Also, we are recording this. Being recorded. As it just said, we are recording this session. If everyone can put themselves on mute, that would be great. Thank you. Oh. Hi, Kathy Jeffers. Can you put yourself on mute?
I am doing it right now.
Thank you so much. Sorry, there's a little feedback. Yeah, so I'll be recording this and we'll post it to the website for future reference so you can share it with other people. Let's see. So I'm going to dive right in. What is the MCACD Special Projects Grant? I'm going to give you a little bit of context here. MCACD stands for the Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District. It's the county body that invests in the arts, culture, and heritage work here in Montgomery County. And the Special Projects Grant is one of the primary ways that investment reaches the community directly. The program launched in 2020, and since then, it has supported many organizations across the county, everything from community festivals and public art installations to literary programs, theater productions, and visiting artist series. It's one of the broadest and most flexible arts funding programs in the region. This cycle, the 2026-2027 cycle, has $275,000 available with individual awards up to $15,000. That's actually the highest individual award in the program's history, which is very exciting. And there is one special exception. If your project is happening twice in the window, the grant window, awards up to $20,000 may be considered. Can everyone hear me okay? Got me. Okay, cool. Um, so I do want to flag something very important about this cycle. It is actually, instead of a 12-month, as in the past, if you've been a past applicant, it's normally a 12-month cycle. We are transitioning to a January through December calendar in 2028. So just for this cycle, it is an 18-month window. So the project needs to take place from July 1st, 2026 through the latest date being December 31st, 2027. So after next December, we'll flip to a January, December normal 12-month calendar. But just this is a one-time transitionary cycle. So it's a little bit different, but hopefully that gives people more opportunities. One other change for returning applicants, there is not a letter of intent phase that has been eliminated for this cycle. You'll just go straight to the application. So hopefully that simplifies the process. And just as a reminder, this is a competitive merit-based process. Applications are reviewed by an independent panel of arts administrators, artists, and community leaders. And we'll touch on that a little bit more. Is anyone getting glitching? Okay. I just want to make sure. I just saw that in the chat. I'm going to share the website. If anyone wants to pull up the website on their end, it is specialprojectsgrant.com. I'm going to share that with you all. Give me just 1 second. Hopefully you can see that. So this is the website that you'll go to. We'll scroll down. There's a little bit about the special projects grant, projects that are funded. So who can apply? I'll go back up here. Small to medium-sized nonprofits are the primary applicants. You'll need a nonprofit and tax-exempt status under 501c3, though collectives and unincorporated organizations can apply in partnership with a fiscal agent. So the other big thing is that your project does need to serve Montgomery County specifically. Another important rule about this is one application per organization and one application per project. So you cannot submit multiple applications, or two organizations cannot submit separate applications for the same project. And the project must primarily benefit Montgomery County residents. That's the geographic focus. In terms of who gets funded, we have different project types. For example, cultural and multi-arts, so that's festivals, neighborhood events, and projects spanning more than one discipline. Cultural heritage, projects that preserve, present, or celebrate regional cultural traditions. Education and school residencies, community-based arts programs, literary arts, projects featuring poets, fiction, nonfiction authors, performing arts, theater, dance, music, opera, musical theater, and then visual arts, exhibitions, public art installations, and projects in all mediums. If your work touches any of those areas, you're in the right place. And what makes a strong project? Panelists are going to be scoring on three primary things: project quality and artistic vibrancy, community impact and engagement, and your organization's ability to complete and manage the project. And as you're writing your application, please keep those in mind. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about the scoring. And then here's a little bit more information here. Before I get into some other specifics, I do want to frame how we're thinking about expenses for this grant. The Special Projects Grant is designed to fund direct project costs, meaning the money you spend should be clearly and directly tied to making your arts or cultural project happen. When you're putting your budget together, ask yourself, if someone looked at this line item, would they immediately understand how it connects to my project? If the answer is yes, you're probably in good shape. This is typically the funding for artists is typically the biggest chunk of most project budgets. Fees paid to contracted artists, performers, instructors, consultants, and all other personnel can be covered by grant funds. The key requirement is that each contracted service needs to be itemized individually in your budget. Don't lump everyone together under one line item. The panel will want to see who you're hiring and what you're paying them for. There's a couple administrative requirements to keep in mind. If you're paying a contractor $500 or more for a service, you do need to have a written agreement, a simple contractor letter of agreement that spells out the scope of work. And if anyone is getting paid more than $2,000 during the grant period, they'll need to provide a completed W-9 before they can get payment. The Dayton Foundation, which is serving as the fiscal manager for this program, will issue a 1099 NEC for anyone getting over $2,000. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. The supplies and materials needed to execute your project are also eligible expenses. This includes things like art supplies, printing costs, signage, equipment rental, the equipment rental for the performance, venue rental fees. The through line is that these costs must be directly tied to the funded project. A general equipment purchase that isn't specific to your project won't qualify, but renting a sound system for your concert series absolutely would. Marketing, definitely getting the word out about your project is a legitimate expense. So marketing materials, social media advertising, printing flyers, website updates, those are all things that you can include in your budget. And we will be looking at the quality of your promotional plan as part of the scoring. So investing that is definitely a good use of funds. One thing that can be a little nuanced is food. So I just want to clarify that general hospitality, meaning food and drinks for your staff or volunteers and guests, are not eligible. You cannot use grant funds, for instance, to cater a thank you dinner for your planning committee or providing snacks for a volunteer meeting. However, if your food and beverage cost is a direct documented component of the funded project itself, it can be eligible. So if you're organizing a cultural festival and food is part of that cultural experience, or if your project is a culinary arts demonstration, then and food is the project, in that case, you could include it as a line item in your budget. Just make sure it's clearly documented as a project component. A few things that are not eligible. You cannot use grant funds to buy equipment and make capital improvements to your facilities unless the purchase is directly related to your specific project. So buying a new projector for your organization's general use is not eligible, but renting projection equipment specifically for a funded exhibition will be eligible. So the distinction is between building your organization's permanent assets versus covering the direct project costs. If the purpose of the event is to raise money for your organization, it's not eligible for this grant. So the Special Projects Grant is meant to fund arts and cultural programming, not revenue generating activities. Projects centered on religious activities or political advocacy are also not eligible. That said, a project can take place in a religious or community space. The restriction is about the content and purpose of the project, not the venue. This grant cannot be used to replace revenue that your organization has lost, and you cannot re-grant the funds to another organization. The money needs to go to the project-specific expenses. And just again, as a reminder, there are two boundaries, geographic and time. So Again, the project needs to happen in Montgomery County and benefit Montgomery County residents. And all the activities need to take place between July 1st, 2026 and December 31st, 2027. If your organization or its auxiliary groups already receive general operating support from Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, you are not eligible for the Special Projects Grant. This program is designed for organizations that do not have current existing support. And then about matching funds, if you are a nonprofit organization, there is no matching fund requirement. You do not need to demonstrate a cash match. However, if you're a college, university, municipality, or government agency, you do need to have a one-to-one cash match. So if you're asking for the full $15,000 for your project budget, would need to be at least $30,000. So indirect costs, things like general administration, payroll, building maintenance cannot be used for that cash match. So those should be listed in your in-kind section of your application, not in the cash section. A few things, just tips overall. Please be specific and itemized. Panelists are scoring your ability to complete and manage the project. So a budget that says artist fees $5,000 is weaker than one that has a breakdown per performer role and rate. So just showing that you've done the homework is very helpful. Please make your budget, it's advised to make your budget realistic and balanced. The scoring guideline explicitly flags budgets that are unrealistic or hard to interpret. If your numbers don't add up or seem inflated, that could be a determining factor for the panelists. You might want to consider including a thoughtful funding reduction response. So if your application, you might want to include information about how to modify the project if you receive less than the full amount requested. Panelists really take that seriously, and it shows that you've thought about priorities and you can adapt. And every line item should trace back to your project narrative. So if a panelist reads your project description and then looks at your budget, those two should really tell a similar story. Expenses that don't clearly connect to what you've described in your narrative will kind of raise some questions. Does that help? I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit here. Submitting your application, you will apply through the Montgomery County's online system called EC Impact. The link to this is right in this How to Apply section, right here, this Apply Here button. That will take you right to the EC Impact portal. Let's see. The first thing that you're going to want to do is create an agency profile for your organization. A couple little things that can trip people up is if your organization does not have an EIN number, an employment and identification number, just to move through the application, you can just put a phone number in there. It's totally fine, especially for newer organizations. If you're there might be a couple people who may be using Dayton Foundation as your fiscal agent. I can give you I'll put it in the chat, but Liz Marr at Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, there's a back-end workaround for that EIN. So contact me, I can forward you to Liz. But if you're using Dayton Foundation as your fiscal agent, just give us a heads up when you're doing your application and we can help do that little workaround. Let's see. Once you create your agency, be careful entering your information. Sometimes if something's filled out incorrectly, it could kick you out. So just make sure you're doing that correctly. Let us know if you have any questions. In general, the application, what we replaced the letter of intent with at the beginning of the application is qualifying questions. So for instance, it'll say, does your project take place in Montgomery County? If you say no, it's going to kick you out of the application because you're not in Montgomery County. So just wanted to kind of flag that. It is going to ask you for a program name. That is just verbiage. That should be the same as your project name. So program project are the same thing. Um, and if you are collaborating with a team and you would like to have multiple people being able to access this application, you can create multiple user accounts within the agency. So more than one person can work on the application, which is great. Um, One helpful feature, you can download a word planning feature version of each form. So that means you can draft your responses in Word and collaborate outside the portal. And I do want to mention that the narrative text box can be resized. Just click and drag the bottom right corner to make them bigger. There are character counts, including spaces, which appear below each field. So just to be mindful of the character counts. For the budget section, please make sure you itemize salaries by title and fill in the columns carefully. That budget section can trip people up more than any other part. And again, we are going to do an April 13th at 6 p.m. another call. So if you've kind of gotten through some of your application, but you have some other specific questions, always happy to jump on that April 13th call and we can go through some of those items as well. Let's see. Every single form and page needs to be marked complete before you submit. So just don't skip that part. You do need a few supporting documents. You'll need your IRS letter of determination. If you are using a fiscal agent, you can use their determination letter. It's also important to have key like resumes and bios of your key personnel, your project manager, contracted artists, consultants. Um, any kind of press clippings or brochures from past events is very helpful. And two high quality artistic work samples that show the merit of your work, images, video, audio, whatever fits your program. Um, so, yeah. The deadline is going to be May 1st at 4 p.m. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. The portal will close, and any incomplete applications will not be accepted at that time. I'm going to put our emails in the chat, but Liz is the expert at the EC Impact. I'm really grateful for her support. But also you can direct questions to info@specialprojectsgrant.com. That'll come to me, and we'll try to get answers for you if you have any questions throughout the process. Once the applications are all submitted and we get past May 1st, all eligible applications will go to an independent review panel, and that's comprised of arts administrators, working artists, community leaders, and they will score the application across those three categories I mentioned earlier. They're not just looking at, and I'm going to pull up past projects so you can look at some of those while I have this up. Let's see. So they're not just looking for the biggest or most established organizations. They're looking for strong, well-conceived projects that have real community relevance, and that's the beauty of this grant. Award decisions will be communicated in June, and after that, we'll move into grant agreements and then off to the races on your projects. A couple of post-award things to be aware of. First off, on payments, if your award is $2,000 or under, you'll receive it as a lump sum. For awards of $2,000 or more, you'll get 75% upfront and the remaining 25% after your final report is completed and approved. Funds are issued approximately 30 days before your projects start. You can also request an earlier payment if you have a deposit or upfront cost to cover. There is a final report required at the end of the grant period due within 30 days of the project completion. There are consequences to not getting that report in. 10 points are automatically deducted from your next application score. And if it's not filed within 60 days, that remaining 25% can be forfeited. So the final project reports are definitely a major thing you want to make sure you do. And then a couple other just overall things. All grantees must acknowledge Montgomery County as the funding source and include the logo on programs, publications, and media releases associated with the project. And all activities need to take place in ADA compliant facilities. And lastly, we would invite, if you're, able and willing to kind of present a short sort of Pechakucha style, just 20 seconds or 20 seconds per 20 slides, that kind of style of just like a fun visual way to show board members how you spent the money and the impact that this had. So we may invite you to come to a board meeting just to do like a quick presentation on, how this helped the community, because these are the people that are providing this funding and they just really want to see that impact. So that's kind of a fun addition this year. I've covered a ton of ground and not a lot of time, so I definitely want to open up for questions. But if you think of questions later, again, please email us. And then the full guidelines are also downloadable from the website as well. So I want to make sure that you see that link. I'll kind of show you where that is. So these are some past organizations that received funding, some really awesome photos. And then on here, this will take you to the Montgomery County site. This will take you to the past projects. This will take you to the full guidelines. And this will take you to the application portal. So it's all right there on the splash page. Hopefully that helps keep it all in one place. But yeah, that's my overview. Does anyone have any questions specifically?
I have a question for you. And thank you for
Yeah,
your presentation, Libby. That was great. Can you
thank
go
you.
back to it was early on where you talked about the W-9s so for example, we would likely hire some soloists for the project that we're going to submit. So
Okay.
do we need to supply you with the W-9s or we just need to have W-9s? And I'm just thinking the way we typically do this with uh, folks we work with is we get their W-9s, we're going to pay them, and then
Mm-hmm.
the money we receive from a grant, whoever that might be, then we pay that out to them. But it sounds like
Okay.
we need to supply you with the W-9s. Is that correct?
You know what? Let me double check on that with my contacts at Montgomery County and just clarify
Okay.
that if you're paying them directly, um, if we would need those.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. And remind me, I just want to make sure I get, but Sharon Norton,
Yeah, I'm with the Bach Society of Dayton.
Bach. Got ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two questions as well.
Uh-huh.
My first question is, so I heard you say something about ADA compliant facilities. So
hmm
does that mean that the event cannot be held outside?
Outside is completely fine.
Okay.
Just if it's indoors, we just need to make sure that people in wheelchairs, et cetera,
Okay, yeah,
can
that was
attend
my
as
next
well.
question was,
Yeah.
if the event is held outside, are there any requirements as far as handicap accessibility or anything like that?
I don't believe so, but I'll check on that and see if there's anything specific, but I don't believe so.
Okay, and then are the events allowed to cross categories? For instance, a festival that has performances?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, those are my two questions for now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I want to pose a couple of questions. You spoke earlier about where events is happening between grant windows. So we currently have a grant, a special projects grant that will be ending in a couple of months. And so I
hmm
wanted to see how does that go as we move along to trying to, continue this process of this grant going forward. What does that look like? Was that what you were saying as it happening twice in the grant window?
Yeah. So traditionally, this grant has traditionally gone from a July 1 to June 30th. That's traditionally like, so your event would happen sometime in July through June. Um, that is going to be changed moving forward to a January through December calendar starting in 2028. So it'll just be a regular calendar year. But to get us off of the July to June, we're just doing this one time, 18 months. So this is unusual, and I appreciate everyone's understanding on this. But did that answer your question?
So not particularly.
Yes, sir.
So we currently have a grant that was administered by Culture Works last year.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
so are we allowed to still apply going forward for the special projects grant again?
Absolutely. Any
Okay.
repeat applicants? Absolutely.
Okay.
There's just a couple projects that have received funding in the past where, let's say, their event happens actually in July, and then it would,
Mhm.
so July 2026, and then would happen again in July 2027. So that would be happening twice in the window.
Got it. Okay. And then my other question was, I'm gonna come back. Oh, do we have to create, so we already have an impact account. We don't have to create a new one, do we?
No.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to note from Kara in the chat. I will check on that on the two projects on the report side, if those would be due after each or just after the combined one. I'll clarify. Obviously, this is like a new having two projects within the same window. So I will ask and clarify. Thank you, Kara.
And I do have one last question. So,
Yeah.
last year I never saw the winners put out to the public for the grants last year. Would that be distributed or put on your website somewhere?
It will. Yep.
Okay.
So we will do a press release and definitely want to advertise and let people know who got the grants and make sure you get some acknowledgement that way for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a cute baby that I know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I got a question.
Hi. Yes.
Uh, Um, so like will in the scoring process, will points be, I guess, deducted or even like affected if your budget has like ample funds to produce a project, but we are still asking for additional funding?
Um, hmm, that's a good question. I'll look into that, but I don't think so. Can you kind of elaborate on your situation?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about I work for the city of Charlotte. We do like summer concerts and things like that. And because it falls within this window, I would like to do it this year. And then also just on the basis of like budget and things like that, I already have those already outlined and everything like that. I know specifics. And like you were referencing in ways where like if you were just generally saying like these are artist fees, it wouldn't score as high as like know the specifics. But we have already locked in, budgets and what the artist fees are for it. And so the funding is there that we have. But like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I would like to also gain additional funding to also offset some of our costs. And in addition, maybe consider add on some additional dates. Because right now we're just doing three. And this would be something that could also help us expand out the program.
I think that's perfectly fine. I think if you have like, hey, we can do the event in a basic way, but here's a way that this could be, expanded upon and, add more artists or all those kinds of things. Also, costs are going up on things. So if you're like, hey, we just need a little bit of a cushion here, I think if you could kind of explain that, I think you should be good. But feel free to send me an email with some
Okay.
specifics and we can kind of work that over. But yeah, I think you should be okay.
Okay. One other too. Is there an opportunity to do like a pre-submission review? Just to be like, hey, this, I don't know if it's even set up that way to where like I could print off my application or if it's only online. But to be like, hey, this is, what I have. Can you just kind of like review it for me before I submit it? Or is it just, go through and submit it?
I will say, so the panelists are the ones who are going to grade and determine who gets these. I could certainly do kind of a precursor look over potentially. Um,
Right.
Short, it really
Sorry, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
It really just kind of depends, honestly, on bandwidth and how many people try to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but if you have any specific questions, definitely, if you're like, hey, I'm just not sure on this part, I'm definitely able to kind of look things over. We definitely want to support you for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that I have a couple grant or chat questions, so I'm just going to address real quick. Um, Does the grant still have the restriction where you can only be awarded 3 years in a row and then take a year off? No, we are just going to do this merit-based now. So that is not something that applies. Um, yes, you can put in-kind volunteer work and equipment to Miko. Um, and Charles, do you have a question? Oh no, that was you just have one. Hi, how are you, Izzy?
Hey, I'm doing well. Olivia says hi,
Oh
everybody.
my goodness.
Yeah. So my question is, one of the projects that I'm exploring would include like partnership with schools, though
Mhm.
it's with a nonprofit organization. But like, if we're working with schools, like a venue, or like we're taking our project into the schools and like teaching the kids and stuff like that, do we need to still represent that one-to-one match?
So it really depends on who is going to be the fiscal agent on that. So if it's like if the school itself is the fiscal agent, then yes. If
Okay.
you're just using that as a venue, no. But yeah, it just depends on who the 501(c)(3 is.
Okay.
That makes
Got
sense.
you.
You said something about a PowerPoint. Would that be if we are granted the grant, or should we have that available?
This is really more kind of an optional thing. I'm just trying to um really communicate a little bit more directly with the Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District Board, how the money has really, like how it was spent. Right now they're like writing checks, giving out this money, obviously through our fiscal agent. Um, but then sometimes we just sort of like these projects happen and then they don't really hear about them too much. So I'm just trying to help the board know how important this money is. So if it's something that you're willing to do, like after your project is done, is to attend one of our board meetings and just have like, it doesn't even have to really be slides. It could just even be just a short verbal, presentation or some photos, just to say, hey, we had, 5,000 people attend our event and we had this, great turnout and we had, how did the project go? And just to let the county know, the impact that this is having on the community. So it's really optional. It's the final report itself, um, document that is really the critical thing. Does that help? Does that make sense? So presentation to the board, completely optional. Um, just trying to keep this funding going. So, um, let's see. I was just checking the chat. Any other questions?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Hi.
I'm with the Dayton Society of Artists, but we're working with other organizations, but we're going to be the main grant writer, I think.
Okay.
So
Okay.
do we need like a letter from these other organizations that they support us in this project, or how should I go about that?
Um, are you acting as the fiscal agent or
I think we're going to take on this project under our wing, so it'll be ours. And
um
we're a nonprofit, but we have other organizations that are also nonprofits that are working with us.
okay.
Um,
I think you're fine. If you want to, feel free to email me like offline if there's like something kind of a little bit more specific.
okay,
But what I would say is just, as long as those other organizations are not applying for the same
right. Okay,
funding
they
of
won't.
the
Yeah.
project,
Okay.
um, But also you could include their information sort of in your, your bios.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? To kind
yeah,
of say,
that makes sense.
this is how we're all collaborating together. So it doesn't have to be necessarily formal on like the financial
Okay,
end.
okay, sounds perfect.
But yeah,
Thank
that would be great. Yeah, thank you. I know
Um,
once you get into all
sorry.
this stuff, there's like so many little details.
About the resumes and the bios, whose resume and bios are necessary?
So anyone who's really a critical either personnel in your organization or like let's say, if let's say there's like an opera performance and it's going to feature some like a soloist, like that soloist's resume would be helpful. I think anything that just supports the artistic merit of your project. So up to your discretion, but just anyone who's going to be a key player in in your project would be helpful.
On that same uh, thing, I'm looking at our 2027 festival because our 2026 festival will take place a few days after your period opens this time around.
Okay.
It's a future play festival, and we have
Oh.
adjudicators that we have every year, but we also have different adjudicators every year.
Mhm.
And we won't know the adjudicators for 2027 for quite a while. So
Yeah.
I provide who we used in the past as examples.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely because especially this year because we have such a long window. I mean, there's going to be some projects that could be potentially happening
Yeah.
next fall. And some of this stuff may not be obviously programmed yet. That's completely fine. Any kind of past examples or anything that just kind of supports what the overall project, like, what is this? How does this work? What the
Mhm.
adjudicators, or what their what the how you pick them.
Mhm.
Um, any of that information I think would be great for the panelists.
Great.
But yeah, definitely. I know this long window is going to really hinder some of that. So past examples are perfectly fine.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for asking that question.
Another question. So I'm kind of just trying to figure out which direction I should kind of like go with this.
Uh-huh.
I am the director of Dynamic Praisers and Dance Teams. We are
Okay.
a 501(c)(3 nonprofit organization. We've actually been around for going on about 10 years. We are a smaller organization. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is that we were kind of interested in doing something like a community day
Okay.
slash festival that has performers. So would that be eligible or do I need to like
Yeah.
change the narrative?
No, I think that would be, I think that's sounds exactly we've the special projects grant has funded festivals like Art in the City, like the German Fest picnic. So any of those festivals are applicable.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Would you be able to speak to like how many applicants in the past you all have funded by chance?
Yeah, so we're looking at around 15 to 20. I would say it's going to be a little different this year for two reasons. Number one, the amount of money that we're giving out is actually increased. So the board did vote to increase the overall budget for the entire grant fund, which is amazing. And at the same time, though, they increased the top level individual. So these used to be at the max $10,000 awards. This is the first time it's gone up to 15. And then we do have this possibility of 20 for the multiple projects. So I think it's going to depend a little bit on how many of those multiple projects pop up and then how many people are really seeking the full 15,000 or if we have a few that are only needing 5 to 10. But traditionally it's been around 15 to 20 projects.
Okay, and then it says that they are not there's no fund they're basically not funding like religious um programs or events. So
Mhm.
my other question about that also is where we would want to hold this event is on a I guess, piece of land that is adjudicated to a church.
The
So,
venue is totally okay. So if it takes place like in a religious like on church property or that kind of thing, that's okay. It's just if the program itself is religious in nature.
okay, so will we use, does it request the address for the venue or?
I think it would be helpful to include that, yeah.
So it is okay to use the ad because, like I said, we are in contact with the church because the property is adjudicated to it. Like I said, we have permission, but so are we, so utilize the church address as far as address because the actual place
Yeah,
doesn't have address. Okay.
that's completely fine. And if you want to make any like note of that in like sort of the narrative section, you're welcome to, but I don't see any problem with that whatsoever.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
Do you have a list of, so you named off a lot of things that would not be a permissible purchase. Do you have like a list of those things? Because in my mind, I would rather buy a small little system that costs $150 than to go rent something that's 500 for that event or something, the apples
Yeah.
to oranges types of things. And so
Mhm.
what I'm hearing from you is that you rather us spend that as opposed to, saving that cost.
I will uh double check on some clarity with that and get back to you. Let me just type down your name. Um, what we're trying to avoid, just making a note real quick, Tara. Um, what we're trying to avoid is what has become kind of a nuanced thing in the past, which is capacity building, where people are using these funds in a really general way, and it's not specifically for that project. So I think if you can demonstrate through your budget or through your narrative that actually it's like a one-to-one thing, whether you bought it or rented it, I think that that's completely, I mean, it's I think that that's workable, especially if it's smaller amounts of money. I think where things get a little complicated is um, when things are used that are just general use and it's just not for that specific project. So that's just sort of like where we're just trying to kind of draw some boundaries on the use of the money. But I think that there's definitely some areas where there's not a lot of difference there. And I mean, we don't have to kind of, I think the panelists will be understanding in some of those situations for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. These have all been such great questions. Thank you so much. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, I have one question. So we had submitted a project, it's a visual art project, that we were looking at introducing around Courthouse Square.
Okay.
In our previous application, although we weren't awarded funding, um, one of the areas that we did not score as well in was about some of that ADA compliance.
Hmm.
And so I guess is there without having looked at the application, is there an explicit section dedicated to that? Because again, one of the things that we got dinged on was, are we going to have the the paragraphs that were going to be on the signage narrated on a website that could be uh, um, audio accessible, or are we putting some sort of tactile 3D, representation on our signage
Hmm.
for those that are blind. So I was just curious if there had been any clarification about the extent of that ADA accessibility, compared to just being in an ADA accessible building for like wheelchair users.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I'm just noting your name. Feel free if anyone who had like a, hey, I'm gonna follow up with you, please feel free to send me an email. Again, it's info@Special Projects Grant. I'll put that in there right now. Feel free to send Grant, um, please feel free to send me a follow-up email so I can follow up with you directly. But Keegan, I think that's a great question. And some of the ADA compliance, there's a couple questions about that. So I'll ask and get some clarity around that. But I would generally say, I think, trying to do your best, but I think some of the specific examples you were using might be a little extreme. So I just want to make sure I have a good understanding of um the specific things that you got dinged on. So if you don't mind like messaging those to me and I can specifically um look into that,
Sure.
that would be great. Thank you so much, Keegan. Um, I have a couple questions in the chat, so I just want to make sure. There have been some changes to the budget form. There's overall the process I've really worked hard to simplify. So that's part of the reason, like, we've taken out the letter of intent. The application overall is somewhat more simplified. So the budget a little bit has been simplified. We're just really trying to increase accessibility as much as possible. Diane, if our project consists of a concert series, say 2 or 3 concerts, do you need a budget for each concert, or we can everything together? Diane, on your question, my gut instinct is to tell you to maybe break out some of those costs. So maybe it's like if we're doing 3 concerts. So her question is, if our project consists of a concert series, let's say 2 or 3 concerts, do you need a budget for each concert, or we can add everything together? I think that kind of comes together with like the lump sum issue. I think you could combine them, but if you can say, hey, this is what the sound engineer is going to cost for all 3 concerts. This is what each of the I don't I don't know if you need to just be like sound engineer for concert 1, sound engineer for concert 2, sound engineer for concert 3. I think you could combine some costs. But I think lumping it all together might be a little just like, here's 3 concerts and here's all these bands and it's just one big lump sum. I think if you can kind of cut some of that out, and feel free to email me specifically, we can kind of maybe work through a little bit of that. And see what makes the most sense. But I think some combined costs are totally fine. Like if it's going to be, hey, this is going to be the fee to rent the stage or the PA or whatever that fee is, I think it's fine to just lump that together. So I think I think it's a yes or no and no question, Diane, if that makes sense. Okay, thanks, Diane. But yeah, feel free to email me and we can kind of work through some of those specifics.
What about having vendors participate, and what about like food trucks? And then you said no fundraising. So what does that mean, that our organization cannot like sell food and stuff like that? Or how does that work?
You can sell food. It's not something that we're gonna fund in terms of like the grant itself is not going to fund food costs in terms of like if you're feeding the dancers or volunteers and stuff, that's not an eligible cost. But you're welcome to have, if you have a festival, a lot of the festivals, Art in the City has food trucks, there's a lot, so that's totally fine. Yeah.
This is my last one. At least I'll.
You're fine.
Everybody probably trying to get off here. So another idea or program that I was thinking of, we've done like a expression contest for the kids.
Okay.
And it takes place during Black History Month. But like in the past, we've done cash prizes with it. Is that something that could be funded, or would it have to be more like this is a cash prize, but it's more so for like scholarship funding? Or is it fine for us to say, hey, I mean, we would cut them a check and this is the funding that we would need for it?
Um, I will I will double check if there's any specific issue with that. Um, I will check on that, Charles.
Okay. And I just sent you an email just so that way I've got your email and like, let's just,
Perfect.
yeah, so we can follow up there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What about funding for like if we wanted to do like a raffle for like Um, all the children that come, we give them a raffle ticket, and we give out like bikes or something. Is that something that's able to be?
Um, I'm not sure. That might kind of go into a territory that might be a little complicated. Um, I can definitely follow up with that if you want to specifically email me, like what you're envisioning. But that, yeah, that might start to get into like kind of a complicated territory. It really needs to be the goal of this project specifically is enhancing arts and culture. So really what we're looking for is the funding specifically to go to areas of specifically like arts and culture. So let's say you have a festival and there's like all these different elements, but you're looking for funding specifically for the performance itself or the art itself. Bikes and stuff like that probably is starting to get into like a different funding territory. So, but you could definitely have a raffle at your event. Um, it's just not an eligible expense, if that makes sense.
What about security for the event? Is that an eligible expense?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Security for the event?
If that's personnel that's needed for the event to happen.
Our events are usually like really, really packed. Like most of our events that are held inside of facilities are usually always like packed to capacity. So I would
Okay.
definitely say that some form of some form of security would be necessary. I always think safety's first.
Uh-huh.
So I would most definitely say, yeah. So
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I don't usually
No, you're good.
partake
You're
in
good.
this type of stuff. So
Definitely follow up with me in an email and then we can kind of maybe work out some of the specific questions about like the raffle and security costs for sure. That would be helpful.
okay.
Yeah.
I do have one last question. In the next uh Zoom that you have, is there opportunity to actually go over the budget? Will that be a part of the next thing, or will it be where it's intentional to really, understand since the budget form has changed, how it should be filled out? Would that be a part of the next Zoom
We can
meeting?
definitely do that in the next one. Yeah. I'll just make a note of that so we can go over that a little bit more. It hasn't been extensive changes. It's just more trying to simplify and clarify some of the language. We got a lot of questions about um, some of the same questions over and over again. So we were just trying to kind of simplify and clarify some of the headers so it was a little more clear.
Yeah, they were definitely a little troublesome to understand.
Yeah, I
But I
heard.
Yeah, but I do think it's valuable, and it's a lot of value to go over that form.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely do that in the next one, especially if there's a lot of the same people. We can kind of be a little briefer on the front end of what everyone said to everyone earlier, and try to get into some more specifics on like the budget and the EC impact application side. So a little bit more technical is definitely um, a good thing. So we'll definitely try to do that for you
Can you confirm
and
the
for
date of
everyone.
the next one?
It is going to be Monday, April 13th at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And again, that session will also be recorded and it'll be put on the website as well. So if any of you can't make that, we'll put that up there as well for everyone's reference. I really appreciate everyone calling in this evening. I love that there's so much interest in this. I know the Montgomery County is so excited to get this funding out into the community, and we really want it to be as broad and as accessible as possible and really serve the width and breadth of the county. So I just love seeing so many people on this call and so much interest. So if we can be supportive at all, please let us know. And let's see, let me just put real quick. I just want to put in the chat before I close um, Liz's email. This is specifically. Let me grab it real quick. This is specifically going to be for if you have questions once you are in EC Impact, like if you get locked out. I just want to make sure I give you Liz's email. Sorry, I thought I had it right here. Hang on one second. Any other last questions before we get off here? The email address that I put just in the chat right now, that is Liz. And she again is like the EC impact person. That is only if you get like locked out of the application system or you have Dayton Foundation as a fiscal agent. She gets a ton of emails, so definitely try not to overwhelm her, but you can really forward everything to me if you're unsure. If you specifically get EC, I got a question on EC Impact. EC Impact is the system that you're going to log into to do your application. That is the county's sort of portal for you to put in your agency information, your project information. The application lives in this EC Impact sort of database system. Yeah, absolutely.
Does it let us start, save, and come back, or do we have
Yep.
to complete it all at the same? Okay.
No, yeah, you can save it and come back, which is nice for sure. But thank you again all so much for your time this evening. Please reach out if you have any questions, if you need anything. We're here to support you. And thank you for all that you do to bring arts and culture to Montgomery County.
Thank you, Libby.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Libby. Peace.
Thank you.